In 2024, as the tension between Russia and Ukraine continued, the world stood on edge, haunted by the specter of nuclear war. Yet the greatest fear isn't the blinding blast or searing flames, but the silence that follows, the relentless cold of a nuclear winter, where the warmth of life fades and the earth shivers under an eternal shadow. So, what is this nuclear winter, and why are scientists more afraid of it than the nuclear explosions themselves? Could it possibly wipe out humanity? There's no doubt about the destructive power and horror of nuclear weapons. The moment any madman decides to use one, the bomb will cause a massive explosion that will obliterate buildings and infrastructure and, of course, take countless lives, whether human, animal, or plant. But as horrifying as the explosion is, its effects are not as dangerous as the radiation it leaves behind. For example, the infamous Hiroshima bomb caused the immediate death of about 80,000 people, but 5 years after the explosion, the death toll had risen to 340,000 people. The lethal radiation left behind by the bomb represents the second stage of the nuclear weapons evil, and as evident from the death toll, this stage is far more devastating than the first. However, what many might not notice is the third stage of the evil of weapons of mass destruction. Nuclear winter. Nuclear winter, first of all, doesn't require a nuclear weapon to hit a specific city to kill tens of thousands of its inhabitants. A nuclear strike in Europe, for instance, could lead to deaths across other continents. But secondly, and this is the bigger problem, if a catastrophe of this scale occurs, the death toll wouldn't be in tens or hundreds of thousands. Instead, we'd be talking about hundreds of millions. In fact, if we avoid sugarcoating it, nuclear winter could lead to the extinction of life on Earth. You might think we've already answered the episode's question, but if you pay attention, you'll notice that our discussion so far is based on possibilities. This particular topic is one that even specialists disagree on. However, generally speaking, all we can say is that while the number of casualties would undoubtedly be massive, possibly reaching billions, the matter of humanity's near-complete extinction requires us to delve into some details. First, let's understand what nuclear winter is and what it could do. To define nuclear winter in a single sentence, it is the environmental destruction resulting from nuclear explosions. Notice the word explosions in the plural. Nuclear winter is not a scenario that could result from 1, 2, or even 3 bombs. For this stage to occur, it would require a full-scale nuclear war between countries using dozens of bombs from their nuclear arsenals. In such a scenario, the heavy use of nuclear weapons would cause massive amounts of dust, smoke, and combustion byproducts to saturate the atmosphere. This would form a giant cloud in the sky that would block, or at least significantly weaken, sunlight. That's where the term nuclear winter comes from, as sunlight wouldn't penetrate during this phase. Now, you might be wondering how many explosions it would take to reach such a catastrophic state. This is the very question that has preoccupied scientists since the Hiroshima explosion. In the early years following World War II, before the development of powerful computers capable of conducting simulations, opinions varied on the number of explosions required to trigger nuclear winter and the subsequent destructive effects. Scientists relied on assumptions based on known data, drawing comparisons to massive volcanic eruptions that altered the climate in their regions. For example, the massive volcanic eruption in the U.S. in 1815 caused significant combustion byproducts, leading to snowstorms in July. Similarly, Indonesia's Krakatoa eruption in 1883 lowered global temperatures by an entire degree Celsius. When computers became more advanced, enabling accurate simulations, the picture became much clearer. Scientists began feeding all available data into computers, which then predicted the likely outcomes of different scenarios. For instance, 2 NASA scientists, Alan Robach and Brian Toon, conducted a computer simulation to examine the climatic effects of a small-scale nuclear war between India and Pakistan. At the time, tensions over the Kashmir region were high, and both countries were threatening each other with nuclear weapons. The scientists envisioned a scenario where 100 nuclear bombs were detonated. The simulation results were terrifying. Black carbon and nitrogen oxides would rise into the stratosphere, absorbing sunlight and heating the atmospheric layer. With sunlight absorbed, Earth's surface climate would change, turning every region, whether in summer or winter, into a cold, cloudy, winter-like environment. The soil would become frozen and unsuitable for agriculture, and plants would stop growing. The most significant issue, however, would be radiation. As the stratosphere heats up and heavy gases accumulate, the ozone layer would start to erode, allowing ultraviolet radiation to penetrate. This radiation would have devastating effects on all living beings. Crops would fail, burns and cancers would become widespread, and even aquatic life would be affected, killing most fish. This catastrophic scenario would last between 1 and 4 years, after which its effects would gradually subside. However, the aftermath would continue to cause harm for 10 to 25 years. Comparing this frightening scenario to our episode's question, can humans survive nuclear winter? We find that humanity would first need to survive the nuclear explosions. Then, they'd have to endure the radiation and nuclear winter effects, all while facing food scarcity and famines caused by crop failures and animal deaths. Yet, despite this grim outlook, the simulation suggests that humans wouldn't go extinct. Several factors, such as shelters and humans' ability to store resources, were considered in this prediction. A small group of humans could hide and live off their stored supplies, eventually repopulating the Earth. But hold on. The simulation we discussed was based on a scenario involving the detonation of 100 nuclear bombs. Currently, the declared number of nuclear warheads is 12,705, a declared figure. So, the answer to the question has become much clearer. While nuclear winter is incredibly dangerous and would result in staggering casualties, it is ultimately a natural disaster, akin to massive earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. Just as there are weak and strong earthquakes and volcanoes, the same applies to nuclear winter. To determine whether humanity could survive nuclear winter, we first need to specify its scale, whether it's mild, moderate, or severe. Some scientists believe the nuclear winter that could truly lead to extinction would result from detonations releasing 150 million tons of combustion byproducts into the atmosphere, which corresponds to a nuclear war involving at least 4,000 warheads. Other scientists argue that these theoretical predictions cannot be fully relied upon, as they fail to account for human awareness. Theoretical results cannot predict how many survivors would possess the necessary awareness to adapt to the new reality. In a nuclear winter scenario, everything would change. Minor injuries and simple diseases like infections and diarrhea could become fatal without emergency medicines. Additionally, a fundamental level of nuclear awareness is required. For example, knowing which wild plants can grow without sunlight. Scientists say there are 33 types of plants that could be cultivated during a nuclear winter, along with hundreds of other recommendations for dealing with various aspects of such a scenario. Books have been written to educate people on how to act in the event of a nuclear winter.
If you believe a nuclear winter is unlikely to happen in your lifetime, but consider a nearby nuclear blast more likely, watch the video on the end screen. It will guide you on how to survive the critical first few minutes after a nuclear event.